If you think all compressors are made the same, in this video, we're going to take a look at the new and intuitive features of Smart Comp 3 by Sonable. This is Alex from Alex Pro Mix. Let's have a look. For starters, we're going to be working with a spectacular female vocal recording. I have nothing on this track except for smart EQ, rolling off the lows, controlling off the low mids, and boosting a little bit of the highs, but not too much. This is like a dB boost.
I tried several times to truly find time's very detailed design and how I'm lost in its groove.
It's a very raw, natural sounding performance, but we want to control it because as it gets louder, you can see that the peaks go really high and the soft parts are really low. Let's listen to those sections.
They say talk is cheap, so I spend my silver on freedom I found in my dreams and a yearning for all that could be.
In fact, we'll analyze that particular phrase right there. So in the profile, I'm going to select vocals, high, click analyze, and start playback.
They say talk is cheap, so I spend my silver on freedom I found in my dreams.
And there you go. Here we have this map that allows us to control punch, snap, dynamic, and density. As I move this around, you can notice that the ratio, threshold, and attack controls update. So this is a sort of macro control that's relevant to what you just analyzed, to what Smart Compressor just analyzed. And it changes. So for example, if I analyze a piano track that's very dynamic, it's going to give you a larger map to work with. If I analyze something that's very dense, like an electric guitar with distortion, it's going to be a much narrower option. But you still have access to all the controls. But let's listen to what this vocal performance sounds like as we dial this from dynamic to dense. Another thing that I'll do is to make sure that auto output is on, and let's play this from the top. Here we go.
I tried several times to truly find time's very detailed design and how I'm lost in its groove. And with all I've seen and for all I've done, I found no chains to abide.
I like that right there. It's a 4:1 ratio with a 19 millisecond attack and moderate threshold. And there's some advanced settings here that we can use to further shape the tonality of this compressor. The first one being style, where we can cycle through clean, smooth, aggressive, or custom, where we can adjust the saturation and the character. For aggressive compression, like whenever I'm using this in the dense mode or in the dense area of the map, I like to go with clean. So what I'll do is I'll save this on, preset 1 or snapshot 1. I'll go to 2 and try the opposite. I'll bring this down to a more dynamic sound, but I'll change the style to smooth. And let's compare the two. So quickly, I'm going to compare one snapshot using a high ratio, clean, and then the other snapshot using a low ratio, smooth. Let's check that out.
This is our moment, all doors are open, all of these words have been spoken. Is this what it feels like to be free?
Wow. This is really grabbing that voice, but it doesn't sound bad. It doesn't sound like oversaturated because we're using clean style with a high ratio. That's a really nice combo. Let me hear what that sounds like with a little bit of vocal reverb.
This is our moment, all doors are open, all of these words have been spoken. Is this?
Awesome. Now let's bring in the piano.
This is our moment, all doors are open, all of these words have been spoken. Is this what it feels like to be free?
Lovely. All right, so we'll stop right there and let's dive into some of the features of Smart Comp 3. As you can see, you have different profiles that you can analyze. In fact, you can even use Smart Comp 3 across your mix bus, or for mastering purposes, you can choose between these different music styles or genres. The phase can be set to minimum phase or linear phase, and this is also an option here in the menus or in the preference where you can enable use linear phase by default. Also, show tooltips is a useful feature if you're just learning the plugin. For example, I can hover around this map and it's going to give me an explanation of what it does and how to use it. Same for these advanced features. One of my personal favorite features of this plugin is this right here, the input writing. Adjust a target. In my case, I'm going to go with -18, and you can adjust the amount. And as I increase the amount, you're going to see that there's going to be more input writing of the signal before it feeds the compressor. For this, I'll go ahead and just mute the vocal performance so you guys can see the visual here on the input writing. We'll turn off show tooltips, and let's check this out. So I say increase the amount, you're going to see that there's more input writing taking place, all with a target of -18 dB. So there's roughly 3 to 6 dB of gain writing, and all this is taking place before it feeds that signal into the compressor so that the compressor is always getting a healthy level. Cool. For this demonstration, we'll set the amount to 50. And let's move on to the piano track. As you can see on the waveform, the piano track is also very dynamic, where you have really soft parts and really loud parts. This is probably the area where there is most dynamics. So let's go ahead and use this section to analyze. I'll choose Keys Acoustic and hit Analyze. Here we go. I told you guys that whenever you're dealing with a sound source that's much more dynamic, you're going to have a bigger map. And so here's our bigger map. If we move this to the right, we're going to get more of a punchier sound. Notice how that changes the attack settings, whereas a snappy sound is going to have a faster attack. That's great. This is also a great learning tool. Move it down to dynamic, you're going to have a lower ratio. Move it up to dense, you're going to have a higher ratio, faster attack. So let's experiment with this and find a setting that we like. Here we go. All right, so that's definitely too aggressive. However, I'm going to use some of the advanced tools to bring the mix down. So for that, I'm going to keep the style clean. Spectral comp is going to be on. You can adjust the color from neutral to bright to warm. We'll leave it at neutral. And then the internal sidechain, this is what I really want to get into. Here you can enable the sidechain EQ. So for example, I can de-emphasize the low end of the piano before it's fed to the compressor, and I can emphasize the low mids. Here we go. So for this, let's bring the mix down so that we're getting some of the dry and wet blend here. And let's listen to that with the vocals because that's what this is all about. Bring in some verb and let's balance this together. Here we go.
These words have been spoken. Is this what it feels like to be free? It feels like waking. It feels like breaking. It feels like all things are shaking. It feels like catharsis to me. And I pray to exhale, been under these waves for way too long.
All right, guys, so that's all the time that we have for this video. I really hope that you enjoyed learning how to use Smart Comp 3. The next step, well, download a trial yourself from sonable.com, test it out in your own sessions, come back and leave me your feedback in the comments below. Thanks again so much for watching. Till next time. Peace.